The Soltraxians, living on one of the most beautiful planets in the galaxy, had long been a society that rejected advanced technology, living in harmony with nature for thousands of years. They had learned to live without harming natural resources and prided themselves on their lush forests and clear rivers. But one morning, their scientists made a discovery that would bring their peaceful existence to an end. Their twin stars were rapidly on a collision course. By the time humanity noticed the Soltraxians' dire situation, it was already too late. One of the observatories orbiting the planet had detected abnormal movements in the star's orbits. Soltraxian leaders struggled to accept the threat. Their philosophy was rooted in the belief that nature would always find its balance. But this time, the natural order of the universe was on the brink of destruction. Humans proposed creating a massive artificial black hole. This black hole would generate a gravitational force strong enough to alter the star's orbits. But if not done in time, the Soltraxian planet would be completely destroyed. Jacob Althorn, the scientist leading the project, tried to maintain his composure as he explained the situation to his team. The young engineer beside him, Valerie Reed, couldn't hide her anxiety. If we open the black hole in the wrong place, we won't just destroy the Soltraxians. We could wipe out this entire star system, Valerie said. Jacob nodded. We have very little time to find the right spot, he said. But this is our only solution. Soltraxian leader Joran approached Jacob and spoke. We will not interfere with the balance of the stars. We have lived in harmony with nature for thousands of years, and this may be part of our fate. Jacob took a deep breath before responding. Nature isn't always kind. Sometimes we have to fight to survive. We'll fight for you, but you need to work with us. The artificial black hole project was progressing rapidly, but the problems the team faced were increasing just as quickly. Jacob and Valerie struggled with the Soltraxians' mistrust of technology, while working on gathering the massive energy sources needed to create the black hole from a giant space station. Everything was a race against time. If we can't generate enough power, Valerie murmured, her hands gliding over the control panel. Jacob had noticed the young engineer's growing concern. We'll succeed, Jacob said firmly. This is just an engineering problem. We just need to open the black hole in the exact right spot to stabilize the twin star's orbit. But things didn't go as planned. Earthquakes had started on the Soltraxian planet, threatening the station where the black hole was to be created. Panic spread through the ships as evacuations began. Once we start the black hole process, there's no turning back, Valerie warned, turning to Jacob. At this point, we either succeed or we lose everything. Jacob walked over to the Soltraxian leaders and locked eyes with Joran. You can either accept your fate or work with us to save your planet. Joran was silent for a moment, then bowed his head. I'm allowing you to help us, he said finally. But the future of this planet is in your hands. The artificial black hole project had reached its final stage. Massive energy generators were brought online to stabilize the gravitational pull of the stars. A great battle had broken out in space. While the Soltraxians were defenseless against the destructive energy bursts from the twin stars, the human team worked tirelessly to correct the situation. Valerie took a deep breath as she managed the controls on the space station. The energy flow is destabilizing, she shouted. Jacob, if we don't fix this, everything will be destroyed. Jacob stood calmly in front of the massive display, monitoring the commands. We have just a few seconds, he said. We need to open the black hole at exactly the right time. Meanwhile, the explosions from the stars rocked the spaceships. The scientists aboard knew that everything around the station would be obliterated if there was a massive burst. Joran and the other Soltraxian leaders watched the catastrophe unfold through their ship's windows. Their philosophy of living with nature was on the verge of annihilation. Finally, Jacob saw the moment. Now, he shouted. The artificial black hole project had reached its final stage. Inside the metal walls of the space station, there was a deep silence, with only the hum of the machines breaking it. Outside, in the dark void of space, chaos reigned. Energy bursts from the twin stars were becoming more frequent and more violent. The atmosphere of the Soltraxian planet glowed with waves of purple and red light, signaling the approaching disaster. The Soltraxians, who had lived in harmony with nature for so long, couldn't hide the fear in their eyes as they witnessed nature's imminent destruction. Jacob stood in the command center of the station, wiping the sweat from his brow as he stared at the large screen in front of him. Simulations showing the twin stars on a collision course repeated over and over. The stars could collide at any moment, he muttered to himself. Valerie Reed's hands were flying across the console beside him. "The energy flow is unstable," she shouted, her eyes darting over the panels. "We need to keep the energy for the black hole under control, or everything will blow." Jacob glanced at Valerie and took a deep breath. "We're going to make this work," he said, his voice firmer than ever. "Time's running out, but I know we can do it." Outside, the explosions were growing larger. Massive waves of energy from the stars spread through space, causing the station to tremble. Long-range ships were trying to escape these waves, but each burst made their struggle harder. It was like a battle in space. Nature seemed determined to overpower technology. Soltraxian leader Joran watched everything from his ship orbiting the planet. Beyond the glass in front of him, he could see the chaos unfolding in space. His eyes were full of sorrow, and his face was tense. "I believed this was part of nature's cycle," he said softly to his advisor beside him, his voice low and filled with regret. "But maybe we shouldn't let nature be this cruel." The advisor bowed his head. "We trusted them, my leader," he said, not taking his eyes off the window. "Let's hope humanity is as strong as they claim." Jacob's team was making final adjustments to the power station that would create the artificial black hole. The station's core was filled with massive energy generators. Each one was connected by titanium cables, and the low-frequency hum of the machines filled the room. Valerie's fingers moved rapidly across the control panel, while Jacob kept his eyes fixed on the large screens. "If the energy flow destabilizes again, we could lose control of the black hole's orbit," Valerie said, her voice full of fear. "We need to be exact," Jacob replied. "One mistake could ruin everything." At that moment, red lights began flashing on one of the screens. "Earthquake!" Valerie shouted. On the Soltraxian planet, massive tremors had begun due to the intense energy bursts from the twin stars. The entire planet was splitting apart, with deep fissures opening in the ground, oceans swelling, and forests catching fire. Some Soltraxians were being evacuated by ships, but the process was chaotic. A massive energy burst exploded in space, and a few ships were destroyed by the intense wave. Panic was everywhere. Humanity and the Soltraxians were trying to stand together against the collision of nature. In the command center, Jacob was growing more tense. "We're running out of time," he shouted to Valerie, his eyes never leaving the stars on the verge of destruction. "It's now or never." Valerie didn't hesitate. She entered the final commands, and the process to create the artificial black hole began. In the dark depths of space, a rapidly spinning vortex of energy formed. A visibly dark void started to appear, pulling everything around it. The twin stars were caught in the black hole's gravitational pull, and their orbits suddenly began to shift. But this time, things were not completely under control. The black hole's pull grew faster than expected, causing serious destruction in the surrounding space. Massive ships trying to escape were being torn apart. Soltraxian leader Joran watched in horror as he felt his heart tighten. "We might be destroyed along with our planet," he whispered in fear. As Jacob stared at the control panel, He turned to Valerie. "We need to stabilize the black hole's power," he shouted. "If not, it won't just be the stars. We'll be pulled in too." Without hesitation, Valerie began entering more commands. Her eyes were glued to the black hole simulation as her hands worked tirelessly. "We need more power," she cried. Jacob opened the energy generators even further, and finally, the artificial black hole stabilized just as it needed to. The stars were caught in the black hole's gravity, but this time, the station and the ships remained safe. The stars' orbits shifted, and they slowly began to move apart, avoiding the catastrophic collision. Silence fell. The twin stars had settled into new orbits, sparing the Soltraxian planet from destruction. Jacob exhaled deeply, his eyes still fixed on the screen. Valerie collapsed onto the floor, her hands trembling. "We did it," she whispered. Joran walked over to Jacob and stopped in front of him. His eyes were filled with both gratitude and disbelief. "We are part of nature," he said quietly. "But humans like you can fight against nature. That's why we survived." Jacob looked into the leader's eyes and nodded. "We're part of nature too," he said. "But sometimes we have to reshape it to survive." The Soltraxians and humans had faced nature's fury together, overcoming the challenges side by side. A new friendship had been born in the midst of chaos and disaster. I hope you had a good time. If you liked my story, do not forget to comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye. See you in the next story.